Hooray! Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. What is this I see before me? Is it a JAAAG? It is a JAAAG! Finally, sometimes dreams do come true. Airfix have given us, finally, a new tooled Jaguar, Sepecat Jaguar 1/48 scale. Something many of us have been asking for, to my knowledge, at least 4 to 5 years. I mean, I know that many of you are as delighted as I am. It's probably been the most, I think even Airfix probably acknowledge it's one of the most asked for kits for a long time. And no voice, not blowing my own trumpet, but no voice has been louder than mine, along with one or two of my friends that are on the channel, people like David Mummery and many of you that have said, really, yeah, we definitely do want a Jag. Now, Damien's another one, isn't he? Many people though, and you could see that by the comment. I mean, I picked up on this. Yes, I wanted the Jag, yes I did. There's a few I'd like to see. But I really picked up on the fact that this was the one name. It wasn't just me that was liking the idea, but it kept on being demanded by so many people. If you went on things like the Flory Forum or things like Brit Model were talking about it, people have been really gagging for it, for a long time. Oh, suits you, sir. Anyway, I think we're all very grateful to Airfix that they do seem to have listened. It perhaps took a bit longer than some of us would have liked, but that's often the case, I suppose. We can't all have things when we want them sometimes. But yeah, the previous iteration wasn't a great kit that was done with Hella. Now we've got a pure Airfix new tooled, which has been designed by Paramjit, which is exactly what I was asking for. If you go back and look at my videos, let's talk about Airfix and then give us the kits we really want. And I even suggested Paramjit design this, and he has, so I just knew it's going to be brilliant. But before we get into the kit, I mean, I can't take credit for them building. I'm not trying to take credit for them building it, but I'm just glad that I became the spokesman almost, I feel, for so many of you that wanted to see this. And I say, David Mummery did his bit as well. He was talking to people like Luke Slaney-Hewitt, the designer, the researcher at Airfix, who's left them now. He's now with Revell. But there's something very interesting that I'll share with some of you, for those that don't know. No secrets here. We did have some glimmer of hope in the last 12 months because Luke Slaney-Hewitt's LinkedIn page had him standing in a hangar full of Jaguars, which I'm pretty sure was at Cosford. And we kept saying, he's standing surrounded by him, and this is actually something we only picked up on probably about August, September last year. We spotted it, and I was saying, we're talking privately. We saying, wait, he's standing in front of so many Jaguars. How can he not produce a Jaguar? So obviously he was working on doing some research on the Jags, and I know that there was the little museum example that I think Paramjit went to see it as well. Anyway, I don't know the background obviously, but they were clearly working on it behind the scenes, but. Yeah, and they said in their launch info that they've been working on it for over a year. Well, I've been talking to them for 3 years and emailing them for 2 years about it. So, yes, thank you, Airfix, though, for listening to everybody. The fact that I was sort of the outspoken critic would be too strong a word, but I was certainly the sort of person who was voicing the desire for this kit, perhaps as loud, if not louder, than anybody else. I'm really pleased, and I'm sure many of us are going to love this kit. And I've already got this one. I paid for it. This is not free from Airfix. I paid with my own money for this. Well, actually, my wife bought it for me, so that's not quite true. But I have bought another. I've got another one on order, so I'm going to be Mr. Two Jags. So there we go. Anyway, before we get into the actual kit, which we'll go into in great detail, just want to show you a couple of things. I did allude to this a few weeks ago when I mentioned the Jag, and I said that back in 1973, and it came into service in 74, I think, and when it was about to arrive, so many of you will be too young to remember this, but those that can, the summer of 73, I mentioned I had this scrapbook and I had the original, this sort of an info, sort of advert almost for the Sepecat Jaguar, and it's not in great condition. Please bear with me, because it's also got on the other page a load of stuff from the Live and Let Die, Guy Hamilton's Live and Let Die, James Bond film, and how they made it and all this kind of stuff. But have a look at this Jaguar. This is the thing I was alluding to. This is how far my love affair with the Jaguar goes. The summer of 73, and this is pretty much when the Matchbox kit came out as well. as you will recall. But this is what I was referring to now. It's seen better days, this has. It's very old, obviously. I mean, this is now 52 years old, this piece of paper. And it's from, I think it was in the newspaper. I think it was maybe even the Daily Express or something like that. But this was the sort of promo that they did for the Jag. Showing it in, some of them are French, definitely in French colours there. In fact, I think many of them are actually, if not most. But it does show more of an English loadout in that one in the middle there at the top, which I think you'll agree. It's got the Matra rockets. But interestingly, I could be wrong there about the Britishness of it, because it does seem to have the nose of the Matra Sneb rockets poking out, which they often did when they were doing these promos. Very interesting. It's more of a French thing. But there you go. There's a whole lineup of them. So this is what I was alluding to, saying that there's my scrapbook. Look, it's got July 73 on it. Seen better days. But anyway, that's the first thing I wanted to show you. The second thing is just a couple of bits of research and stuff that you might find interesting regarding the Jaguar. So basically, I'll give you a very potted history, a very short version. The beginning of the Jaguar story is perhaps the most interesting part, which not a lot of people know that, as Michael Caine would say. And that is, tell me if you spot anything suspicious here. So they cancelled the TSR2, which my dad went to work for British Aircraft Corporation in, I think it was the summer of 1965. The Harold Wilson Labour government was elected in I think it was October 64, in the autumn of 64, and then did this white paper, and they decided to cancel TSR2. Now, they were already planning the Jaguar, but they were going to have, the RAF had ordered 150, there was 200 planes on order, 150 of them were going to be T2 trainers, and the rest were going to be strike aircraft as a backup for TSR2. And they felt that it was a good, because of its aerodynamics were not so dissimilar to TSR2, albeit slightly smaller, they felt it was a good trainer for TSR2, and this is why they wanted so many of them. Well, of course, TSR2 got cancelled in the white paper in April of 65, and then lo and behold, this was announced 1 month later, that they were going to have this. I say that they were going to have the 150, but that quickly got changed down to, and they roughly split it. I think they were going to have, and they said they were going to be 100, and then they went down to 150, it went the other way, 150 of them were going to be the strike aircraft version. So the GR1, which then later became GR.1A. Both of which you get in this kit. But it's quite an interesting story. It's like, somebody knew what was going on in the background, in the government, It just all feels a bit suspicious, like a conspiracy. Maybe I'm just thinking, maybe I've had too much coffee or something. Let me show you something that's very interesting for you in terms of researching if you're going to build a kit. Over here we have got, I highly recommend, there's lots of websites you can go on, of course, but this one's highly recommended, and it's called thunderandlightnings.co.uk. Now, Thunder and Lightnings, some of you may recall, I've talked about this a long time ago, but Thunder and Lightnings was the name of a book, actually, a children's book by a lady called Jan Mark, and it's about two schoolboys who, basically a schoolboy moves with his parents to Norfolk, near the Coltishall Air Base. And when they had lightnings, and he meets this young lad called Victor, who's a bit strange, but he's obsessed with lightnings. And then at the end of the book, the important bit is right at the end of the book, on the final page, basically, the lightnings seem to go quiet, and then they stand watching, and they can hear aircraft coming in, jets coming in, and it's the Jaguars arriving. And this young boy Victor is very upset about this because he loved the lightnings, Well, I like both myself, but anyway. He knew it was no longer going to be strictly a fighter base, so I think this upset him. And it's a really good book. If you've never read it, Thunder and Lightnings, and that's where the website's got its name from, I think. It's a really good website, gives you an absolute ton of research. Let me just zoom in a bit. A ton of research about the Jag, in this case. A page about the Jaguar, just give you a bit of a flavour for it. It talks about obviously it was a cooperation with Breguet, the French Aviation Corporation, and British Aircraft Corporation. And of course at the time we also had Dassault Aerospatiale were sort of working with BAC on the Concorde separate project. And it's got all this data. It shows the exploded view of how it breaks down, and you'll see the Airfix kit, the way the wings, the design of the wings is very much like the real aircraft. And then it goes through all the history of the French, the early versions of the GR1 that doesn't have the laser designator and targeting system window. The M, which is the marine version, just a quick word on that. That was going to be a French-only marine version for their aircraft carriers, but they decided to drop that in 74, I think it was late 73, 74, in favour of the forthcoming, more adaptable, perhaps more suitable Rafale, which of course has been very successful, and yeah, I can understand the logic of that really. The Jaguar, probably best not, it's smaller wing, probably best not suited to landing on carriers really. But I will talk about that in a minute. I'm going to show you a little bit of video footage which may impress you. If you haven't seen it before, it may impress you. And then there was all this testing goes on, including rough ground testing, which I'm going to show you at Warton. My dad was working there when all this was going on, so it's quite interesting for him, I think. But he wasn't working on the Jaguar, I'm not going to claim that, sadly. I think it was actually a bit of a point of annoyance for him, and he left after about 2 years, because he wanted to be on the JAAAG project, he wanted to go on TSR2, but that got taken away. Anyway, they did this testing where they were landing it across the field, not down the field or on the runway, but across the field on this uneven terrain between the runways to prove how strong it was. And the whole point of this aircraft, it was a close support strike aircraft, not a fighter jet. It was going to be, you know, called in for airstrikes, and they wanted it to be able to land on damaged runways or grassy strips. Something that certainly TSR2 couldn't have done. And you'll see in a moment just how good it was at doing that and how amazingly adaptable it was. Then they went on in the spring of 75, they did this testing on the what is now the M55 motorway between Preston and Blackpool, where they were landing it in both directions. They brought it in and landed it, then they bombed it up and fueled it up, and then they took off with a full load pretty much, going in the opposite direction to demonstrate, and the public were allowed to watch this. Before the motorway was opened, I should stress, there was no cars around. I think about a month or two before the motorway was due to be fully opened. And it was just to show that in times of, during the Cold War, in times of war, that they could actually achieve this and they could actually land on roads. A bit like the Swedish do with the Saab Viggen and the Saab Gripen, you know. Anyway, it's definitely worth a look at this website. I can strongly recommend it to you. Many other research points you can get, of course, and books and things, but this is a very good one. There's quite a lot of detail, tells you all about the performance data, and it's all there. But let me show you this little bit of video that I've got. This I want you to see because I think you'll enjoy this. So this just gives you a flavour of what I've just been talking about. Perhaps a bit more interested in hearing me waffle. Just clock your eyes on this. You ready? Here we go. No sound, but you're going to see the JAAAG. Here we go. This is at Warton on the grass. This is absolutely incredible considering the type of aircraft it is. And you can understand how similar it is to the Swedish concept here. Being able to land on, you know, fields basically, like grassy fields or playing fields, maybe even a golf course, I don't know, but let's keep out the bunker. But look at that. Look at the way the undercarriage can cope with those loads. And you know, it is impressive, isn't it? It is impressive. And then here, this is the M55 motor I've just been speaking of. This is showing it. First they're going to take off, and then they're going to come back and land. It's heading towards Blackpool there, and then coming back in. Short takeoff and landing, and the sheer adaptability. You know, using the parachute, it can stop pretty quickly. It doesn't have reverse thrusters on this aircraft. It's all parachute related. And there they go, turning it around and so on. A very impressive aircraft was the JAAAG, so I'm going to leave it at that. So let's get on with the review. Enough of that. I think that, as I say, it's really nice that so many of us wanted to see this model, and Airfix have duly recognised that, and I think we're all very grateful. Let's see what it's like then. Here we go. So, I have removed the tape already just to save time, but I haven't delved into it at all. So, it's kit number A11010. On the side, we've got 4 options. I just want to say, and this, I don't want to be critical particularly, especially given what I've just said. I will just say though that I'm not the biggest fan of the Gulf War schemes. I'm not against them, but I always think that they make for a rather bland box art. And if you remember, some of you will have seen the Airfix 2025 catalogue, and it's obvious that they were tinkering around with different art options. I think I would have preferred that if it was in landscape format. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure it probably was originally. I think that's probably a cut down version of it. I think that might have been a bit more exciting than just another Gulf scheme. And I say that really because there are so many others like Buccaneers and things that, you know, have got the Gulf scheme on. It does make them look a bit bland and a bit samey. Nothing wrong with the art. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not perhaps the most eye-grabbing it could have been. But Adam Tooby, I'm sure, has produced it, and there's nothing. I say technically, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, I just felt it was a bit too. It always looks a bit bland in the Gulf schemes. The weathering is good though. I think the weathering, a lot of them, you've seen them very overdone sometimes, but I think they've got that right. But it's just perhaps with the background, it just doesn't perhaps grab me the way it might have done. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get into it. I'm sure there'll be plenty in here I'm going to really like. So, we've got on the side the 4 schemes that you can have. Here they are. Whoops, get rid of that reflection. So obviously it is Lossiemouth in Scotland in 74. Now they're only at Lossiemouth for about 4 months and then they moved to Coltishall. So that's 54 Squadron. Then you've got number 6 Squadron, that's the flying can openers if I remember correctly. Coltishall 1990 to 94, that's the second one down. Then we've got Operation Granby, the Desert Storm Gulf War in Muharraq at the airport there in Bahrain, 1990 to 91. And then finally we have got RAF Larbruck in Germany in 1976 at the bottom. Very nice. So I'll give you a quick read of what they say on the side. Over to Airfix now, enough of my sort of view. They actually say, let me just zoom you back a bit on this. I have to say, it was quite funny this morning. I'm sure a lot of you know I've been screaming out for this, begging, praying and pleading for Airfix to do this for years. And when the TPD man arrived, and I almost pounced on him this morning, he was like, oh, I was like, give it to me, please, please, I've got to have it, you know. Yeah, that's how much I wanted it. Anyway, it says, whoops, in May of 1965, yeah, a month after TSR2 was canned, the Defence Ministers of France and the UK agreed on a joint programme to develop supersonic trainer and tactical strike aircraft. France had already decided upon the Breguet A121 design, and this, together with the Rolls-Royce Turbo Mecha Adour engine, which is an afterburner engine, lots of power, became the basis of the Jaguar. Design leadership was with both Breguet and the British Aircraft Corporation. 2 companies established the joint company Sepecat to coordinate their production. The first 2-seat Jaguar flew in September 1968. Yeah. I won't go into details. It flew on the day my wife was born. Incredible. And the first single-seat Jaguar flew in March 1969. Production GR.1 aircraft entered RAF service with 54 Squadron in March 74. The French Air Force phased the type into service earlier in June 73. Okay. Yeah, and that explains... what did I just say? That was July 73 that I showed you from the scrapbook. And that explains why they're all French ones in the picture, which I think they are. I think I have to accept that now. The GR1 for the RAF was a single-seat, all-weather strike and ground attack aircraft with NAVWAS, navigation and weapons aiming subsystem, enabling it to attack without the use of radar. Based mostly in Germany, the RAF Jaguar was used for rapid deployment and regional reinforcement, and others flew in the tactical strike role carrying the WE-177 bomb. Upgraded GR.1A Jaguars, this is with the laser designator in the nose and targeting system. They were successfully flown in the 1990 Gulf War, where 12 aircraft flew 612 combat sorties without a loss. The final Jaguars were retired from RAF service in April 2007, and it was a Jaguar in the Gulf War that actually flew the most sorties, would you believe? Incredible. So, there we have it. There are 243 pieces in the kit. Let's get into it without further ado. I don't dislike the artwork. I'm actually quite stunned about how big it seems. I expected the actual box to be maybe a little bit smaller, so I'm complaining. Right, come on then. We waited long enough. Let's finally get into it. I think I should have some champagne. I haven't got any stock now, unfortunately. Right. Oh, if you look in the background, some of you may have noticed, by the way, something I'll talk about another day, but peeping out in the background, we talked about nostalgia with Matchbox recently. I've got a dinky scorpion there, which, well, it's from the same era, so I thought it was appropriate to have that in the background. Right then, let's have a look. We will park the plastic for a second. It's not actually as much as I thought there would be. Or is there? No, I think there is. It's just that it's such a big bags and big boxes makes you expect it to be, you know, absolutely massive. But no, it's probably right actually. Let's have a little look. First of all, we're going to have a nosy at our colour call-outs. Something I think Airfix did really well. And the decals. So look at the decals first, just to get them safely out of the way. Bum bum bum. Let me zoom you in. They look really nice. The flying can openers, I like that 6 Squadron. Here we go. Check this out. Now these are Cartograph. I think they're designed by my friend Jonathan Mock, and you can see that they are well up to the standard. There's quite a lot of stencils, of course. A lot of no step areas, and that makes me worried. You're going to have to be a bit careful here because we've got quite big areas here which you could have silvering under this because it's a big area that's clear. So just be wary, you're probably going to need to put a real good clear gloss coat down to make sure it's smooth as possible. Or you carefully cut it out in the centre maybe, I don't know. That is a matter for yourselves, I think. There's certainly some fine detail, you know, they've got the stencil detail off brilliantly. They've also got the fuel tank. Again, you've got to be a bit careful though with this one as well, because this is not a criticism of the product, this is just an alert to modelers, because you've got big areas of clear there and you can end up with horrible silvering. Especially if, like me, historically, you don't always get the smoothest finish first time. But looking at the squadron markings, here's the flying can openers here, look. Their typical logo, motif. So you've got Larbrook, you've got the Gulf War option, you've got 54 Squadron here. And what's that one? Sorry, I'm going to actually have to change my glasses for a second because this is so fine, it's absolutely tiny, and I'm going to need something a bit more powerful. Bear with me 1 second. Right, here we go. Right, now then, what are we looking at here? I'm looking at... I won't read this out, but there's a Viz character there, and the replication and the printing quality here is absolutely superb, I have to say. It's very... I needed my glasses because it's so tiny, but I don't know if you can make it out. It's certainly... yes, I won't read out what it says, but it's something rather saucy and quite amusing. But yeah, you see there you've got the flying can openers. And that, I would say, was a fantastic instruction. Decal sheet, I should say. So, zoom you back a bit. That's a great start. I'll pop that back in. Then we have got our colour call-outs, and they've kind of done them all separately, which is nice. So we've got the September 74, but that becomes Coltishall literally. Does it say September? No, it just says 74, not September. But that very quickly by Christmas I think morphs into being at Coltishall, so it doesn't matter either way. Now I've got to be honest, I'm definitely going to build this kit at some point. It'll definitely be on the must build list, and I think I'm going to build it like this in the GR1 form without the nose designator window, because I just think it's nice that somebody's done a GR1, the original version, and it just seems to look a bit more sleek and sexy, that nose, to me, as the sort of JAAAG design was intended, really. But they've done a fine job here, haven't they? They've got all the colour call-outs as clear as crystal. All your stencils are marked out there. It's quite a lot. You are going to have to make sure you do a good gloss coat to make it work, I think. Then on the other side we've got Coltishall with 6 Squadron. And this is 1990, a bit later, 1990 to 94. And you've got the typical flying can openers, the logos on there, of course. And it almost looks good as 6 Squadron, I think. I think they had a nice sort of paint job, you know. That's got the full wraparound scheme, whereas the early scheme has got the what is it? That light aircraft grey underneath. So that's that one. 2 options. Then you've got obviously your Gulf scheme, matte desert sand. And I say be careful when it's matte, because you could have decaling problems. You've got to watch out for that. You're going to need a good gloss coat, clear coat on it. Yeah, with the right amount of weathering. This is one that's got the slightly controversial Viz cartoon nose art. Yeah, it's with a bit of subtle weathering in the right places. I think that would look really nice. That would look really nice. I mean, the thing is, when they came back from the Gulf, they weren't repainted quickly. I think they carried on flying around in these colours for several months afterwards. And then you've got the Larbrook, West Germany, the decals for number 2 Squadron, with the wraparound camo, which I think always looks good. Especially, it's very 70s, isn't it? Very Cold War 1970s. Well, that is a really nice, excellent colour call out. Colour plan, and then you've got a separate sheet for your centerline ventral tank, and you've let's get it the right way up. For all the extended stores, you've got your Sidewinder 9L, which is the later signed Lima version of the Sidewinder, which is the advanced seeker head, of course, that can attack targets head on as well as heat seeking. And then we've got all sorts of things. You've got a Farmat pod, we've got a ANALQ, that's countermeasures pod. You've got it in different colours. You've got £1,000 freefall bombs, 1200 litre tanks, and again you've got the wraparound scheme there, or you've got the one with the light aircraft grey underneath. So they're all there, and this is where you've got to be very, very careful when you do the big tanks, the ventral tanks, because these decals, I say, could really, especially when it's on the darker wraparound scheme, real danger that you can have silvering with your decals, so be very careful. Just make sure you get a good gloss coat. That is that. Then we get into the instructions. Here we go. And it basically tells that history we've already read. So, what was the performance here? Maximum speed, 1,056 miles per hour. So what's that? That's Mach 1.8, is it? It's fast enough, isn't it? It's very fast. Did you know, by the way, you probably won't have spotted this, did you know that Jaguars appeared in a movie? Made a very brief appearance in the Scottish sort of satirical cult film it is, really. Bill Forsyth's Local Hero movie, the one with Burt Lancaster and Peter Riegert, Dennis Lawson. And they actually they're like doing a bit of bombing on the bombing ranges near this little village on the coast where the oil executive from Knox Oil and Gas is supposed to be buying up the village to make a refinery. But you've got these RAF Jaguars passing over, and it happens several times. When he first arrives in Scotland, you'll see it. It's only on for a second. If you blink, you'll miss them, but they are there. Right, okay, so let's have a look at the instructions. Oh, cool. Right, okay. We have got here a... Why is that here instead of being at the end? That's a bit strange. It's the weapons stores loadout. I'm not sure why they put them at the beginning, but anyway. So you've got your sidewinders on top of the wing, which there are several stories about this. One guy actually came forward when I was talking about this previously. And he said, I used to be in the RAF, and I was actually he was an ordnance loader, armed the aircraft, and he said, nightmare, you know, because apparently they didn't have any proper cranes or whatever he was at Colshaw, I think, and he was complaining they didn't have any proper cranes, and they used to literally have to manhandle these sidewinders, 2 men to lift it, and 2 men stood on the wing to carefully take it off. Sounds like an absolute nightmare, but anyway, there we go, that's what I was told. So we've got, it looks like we're going to get the big 1200 litre fuel tanks, and then whoops, too far on the zoom. And then it's nice that it's really good that they give you this almost a bit old school, isn't it? You got your retard, £1,000 retard bombs, freefall bombs. But you got 2 types. You got retard bombs and freefall bombs. The retard bombs are the ones that are in the RAF form. They're not like the snake eye ones the Americans use, which had a fin, drag fins. These ones have a parachute. So this is retard or retarded. That means it has a parachute to slow its fall, gives the plane a chance to get out of the way. And the free fall bombs, they tend to drop from slightly higher up for safety reasons. And then it shows you there the hard points there under the wing. I'm a bit baffled why they put this at the beginning of the instructions. But anyway, we will crack on. So let's get into it then. So here we've got the instruments in decal form for the switches and instrumentation. So yeah, that's going to be quite a detailed interior of the cockpit by the look of it. Nicely detailed ejection seat from Martin Baker, Type 9B. And then we've got our pilot. You've got different specs on the pilot, only in terms of that the C option is the Gulf War Operation Granby, and he's got more of a sandy coloured pilot's flying suit. And there are differences between, interestingly, there are differences between the ejection seats as well. Oh yes, there was quite a big difference around the headbox unit. And then you've got your side consoles going in there, starboard main undercarriage struts. It's pointing out here where there's going to be some detail in terms of the decals going on. It's almost like so it says at the top, position of the internal decals and detailing paint call out. So it's almost like a little bit of a Matchbox, throwback to the Matchbox ones where they have that small parts call out, you know. Anyway, the main assembly starts here. Building up your cockpit tub, complete with your stick and your instrument panel at the front. You've got the rear bulkhead here where the ejection seat's going to mount. And the ejection seat looks pretty detailed, doesn't it, in fairness? That looks quite cool. Yep, fair bit of detail on the side of the head box. Be interesting to see what the plastic's like, won't it? It's even got the ejection pull hoop, which on these wasn't above, like on some of the American jets this is between the legs, so be careful with that, chaps. And then you get your padded seat going in, cushion here. It's got a lot of details. How many stages have we got for the seat? The seat, 1, 2, 3. So that's 9 stages of ejector seat. Wow, this is impressive. It's certainly a far call from the sort of Airfix kits of the 50s, 60s and 70s, isn't it? Then we've got basically the nose gear bay onto which you're going to mount the cockpit, and you're building that upside down, obviously there. Quite a lot of detail, the look of it. Now we get into the nose, and it's the nose on this which is quite an interesting feature of the kit. Different versions have got different noses, and some versions you actually cut off the nose and add a separate nose. So there's potential for, I think if you're going to have the GR.1, what was I saying? So it looks like with the GR.1 you actually cut the nose that's provided, which has a cutout in it. Yeah, because the shape of the profile is slightly different, isn't it? And it shows that over here. You see it being removed. There's a jig here. Well, that's clever. See, this is another thing that Pramjet tends to go in for. Very clever thought process about how you're going to go about actually making the build progress and making it easy for the modeler where possible. And there you go. So there's the alternate nose, which is what I would probably use, the GR1 pointier nose without the window in it. And then you bring in that, once that's all decided, you bring it all in together to provide your nose. You've got your combing on top of the actual cockpit instruments, and then you're building up your gear bay, and you've got what looks like a former in the centre there. It's like I think it's the back of the main gear bay wall. So obviously, if you've got a separate glass piece here, just a quick word on that. It's a separate glass piece. Airfix have been quite cunning, I think, the way they've done this, because they've given you a much bigger glass piece than is necessary, enabling you to mask off the actual window section, and then you just pop this in, glue it as you would normally glue any other part, without worrying about it being a transparency, and then just spray it all, and then at the end you just remove your masking tape from your laser designator window, and you've got a perfect result, hopefully. Although in my case, sometimes I peel back the masking tape and find it hasn't quite gone according to plan. Oops. Anyway, then we've got this. This is doing the both sides now of the main gear bay areas for the wheels. Popping those into the side of the fuselage. It's kind of blanked off to make it a separate section. which is quite nice the way they've done it. They've got a proper detailed sort of bay wall bulkhead, and then we've got a couple of holes you're going to need to drill here on the lower part of your fuselage, which meets up to where the engines are going to come in, of course, at the back, engine nozzles. Then you're going to bring that in there, attach it underneath. Then we've got the, I think it's the Aiden gun cannons, isn't it? Or is it Mauser on these? I think it's Aiden, isn't it, on these? I think the Mauser came later with the Tornado. So I think it's the Aiden gun pack. So you've got those muzzles, exit points there. Then you've got the aero stability strakes just underneath the rear fuselage, and it shows you the angle at which they should be put in at. And then here we're going to, now this is excellent, isn't it? This bodes well, doesn't it? Because we always have problems with these blooming intakes, don't we, on things like Jaguars and Tornadoes and jets generally, when you have a separate intake option. It has intake doors, I noticed, but it doesn't seem to give you an option to have them blown, because I don't think they're ever shown blown on the ground unless they're taxiing. But it does seem that they're actually closed all the time. But the idea is you're going to get perfect alignment, because again, Paramjit's come up with a jig system. Brilliant. So we really appreciate that, I think. So hopefully you should have a perfect alignment on your intakes, which then go in there just behind the cockpit. Then over here you've got a couple of little, I think there's just a hole there to drill for an antenna. Is it a light? A light. Yeah, you just need to make a little hole and get your drill out here. And I say, the way this is broken down is exactly like the real aircraft in terms of shaping. Then you're going to put your top and bottom wings in together, and it shows a couple of clothes pegs in blue, which is quite funny, isn't it? Never seen that before. And then you bring that whole wing completed section down onto the upper fuselage, because obviously it's a very high wing on the Jaguar, which gave it great stability. One of the things that helped it with that ground handling, I think. And here we've got a couple of intakes. There's like a NACA duct that goes on the top there. I think it's like a blown duct to help with the engine cooling. And then we have got there's like a pod that goes behind the cockpit. That's going to be assembled and put in there. And then you've got your radar antenna system. I think it's for on the tail there. You've got on the upper tail. Part of the electronics pack. And then we get to the engines, and here we go. So we've got our afterburner ring here, excellent afterburner ring, and then you've got the main jet nozzles coming through, which actually, as I say, it's an afterburner, quite a potent looking thing when it takes off the Jag, it has to be said. And they are then slotted in, hopefully they'll fit okay. This can often be a point of problematic areas on jets like this. And then you've got your all moving tailplane elevators basically. And then you've got the couple of vent exits from the engine bay. You've got your top strakes. These are aerodynamic strakes, not actually a rail or a pylon. There's an option here. It's either or. So it's only when you're in the Gulf War, I think, that the Operation Granby, that you do have a rail with a pylon on it. And again, on the other side, you're doing the same process again. And then you've got your flaps and your ailerons. Complete with the sort of the balancer nodes that are on them. They're going in there as well, and you've got slats at the front of the wing as well. That's excellent. I didn't realise it had slats. That's impressive. Yeah, I'm loving this already. I think I was always going to love this kit really, because I like Jags. But anyway, but we needed a new one, didn't we? And then you're going to build up quite a complex build here actually, in terms of the parts build count for the main gear legs. These legs on the Jag are really strong, very well damped, able to land on these rough strips, and as you saw, land across the grass. Really bumpy, uneven surfaces, no problem at all. He nearly tipped over, didn't he, in that footage when he first touched down. He tipped over to the left, his left. And then you're going to put all that in there. You've got your actuator control rods going in there as well, retraction system, and you end up with a really big beefy undercarriage. And I just want to say a quick word on this undercarriage and how good it is on the Jag. one of the best undercarriages of any sort of Cold War jet that the British ever produced or were involved in. That was in a cooperation with France, obviously, but when you look at the JAAAG undercarriage, as you saw in that video, and then you compare it to TSR2, TSR2 had this crazy, flimsy, weird system, and I'm pretty sure that they learned from that, and that's why they developed it into this much more robust and meaty undercarriage legs that was then able to do this much more realistic job in the event of actual conflict situations. It can be used easier in the field. Anyway, then it looks like you've got weight on wheels, flat spots on the tyres, which is excellent. Looking forward to that. Then we've got our main nose gear, again, very stout and sturdy nose gear on this aircraft. Putting on your wheels and tyres, what goes in there. I do like the way, it looks a bit fussy and a bit busy, the Airfix instructions, but it's not. It's just that they, instead of having 44 different parts going in one frame, they do a very small number of parts being actually put in each frame. So there's a lot of work goes into these, I think. This is why people feel that they're one of the better instruction manuals for any model kit, really. They're certainly up there. I would like to see more written information about what we're assembling, but you do get some undersurface colour here. It's just that they're trying to avoid having to print it in multiple languages. I guess that's the problem. Anyway, then you've got your doors going in here. You can have them open, doesn't show a closed option as such, but I'm sure you could do if you wanted to. And you got your lights that go on the nose gear door, two big headlights, and then the door is, it looks like the door is closed. You've got the option to have it open or closed. Interestingly, I guess that when it's actually on the ground it's closed, a bit like the Harrier. It's actually shut when it's stationary. It closes after it's landed and the wheel is out. It doesn't leave it wide open to the elements, but there it shows it also with the option of having it open. And then there's the arrestor hook, because of course this aircraft did have an arrestor hook for emergencies, and this is why the French were thinking about using it as a carrier plane. I think the biggest problem as a carrier jet though is although it had this brilliant landing gear, etc., it didn't quite have the shortest landing characteristics. I think it was better suited to the roles it got, really. And then finally you've got your two different options for your pitot probe going on the nose at the end, and the GR1 on the left or the GR.1A on the right, and you've got your various transmitter aerials and antennas going on the top. A couple of lights going on, a couple of strakes going on the tail, again transmitters and aerials, and you've got some FOD covers, which is nice as well. So to keep the debris out, and it always looks good on your model, doesn't it, with a nice red FOD cover in there. And then you've got the option, do you want to put the pilot in or do you not, at the end there. And then you've got your canopy, which you can have open or closed. Again, you've got the option. And then finally we get into all of the pylons for the loadouts, and yeah, we've got quite a selection, haven't we? All the pylons going in there. I think I'll probably go for the 1200 litre tanks and the bombs, I suspect. Will I go for retarded or freefall? Not much difference really to the eye. As I say, it's just a parachute that pops out on the retarded ones. I never like them with a central tank though. I think they always look a bit ugly. So I don't know. But obviously bear in mind that if you're doing the Gulf War version, you might want to think about the likely loadouts and what they would have used. Definitely have the sidewinders. It's amazing that they were able to do that. It's a bit like the Lightning with those big tanks on. We looked at the Matchbox one recently. And it's incredible they could put this stuff on top of the wing, really. But at least in this case, it's not a big heavy thing. It's just awkward, isn't it, from what this what the ordnance chap told me. Well, there you go. Well, that looks pretty clear, and I can see some sensible ideas, some clever ideas. You know, Paramjit's obviously come up with a couple of jigs. So let's have a look at the plastic finally. Enough talking, let's do some looking. Right. And I say I'm not too bothered about this. I'm going to build it at some point. I'm thinking I'm going to do a GR1, and I may do a Gulf War one. What I would say to Airfix, if you're listening, I wonder if in the fullness of time you're going to be doing French versions, because of course it was sold to Ecuador, Oman, India, still in service in India, would you believe? Still in service, the Jag. Incredible. I forgot to mention that. But I'm just hoping they do an Arctic scheme. I would have liked to have seen an Arctic scheme, to be honest. Because it looks brilliant in the Arctic scheme, and I want to do one in that scheme for sure. Didn't cut this very well, did I? Yeah, so I'm hoping if you're listening, you could perhaps a later variant of this would be some nice Arctic camo, because they used to have these Arctic colours when they were on exercise in Norway. Right then, let's get right into this. Zoom you right in and have a look. So we have got our A1 and A2, which are the fuselage sides. Oops, put the light on, I think we might need it now. There we go, that's better. Okay, so what do we think? I'm going to just swap glasses for this because I just need a little bit. My normal glasses are not quite suited to modelling, so I'm just going to have a. Oh yes indeed. Well, that looks nice. The rivets they've got here, the heat resistant rivets in the heat resistant plates at the back where the engine exhaust comes out. Jet pipes, that's really well done. Oh yes, they've done it well. You see, one thing I would say that's a little bit odd is it just the reflection or is it the plastic? Plastic, does it look a little bit see-through? No, it's an illusion. It actually looks to me, it's reflecting, it's got such a high finish on the plastic. Oops. It just looks a little bit like it's actually see-through. I don't know if you're getting the same, it may not look the same on camera. It had me thinking it was very translucent like we had on that that recent, was it the Douglas Havoc from Matchbox? And not really recent, is it, obviously, but it was very see-through, you know. That's that side, then there's the other side, which again, beautiful detail around these heat-resistant plates at the back. I think they've captured that brilliantly well. The riveting, the very subtle panel lines. Here's where your Aiden gun pack is. That's excellent. That's like that. Then we've got our wings, big sprue here for the wings, and again, now this is a little bit translucent actually. It's quite thin at the. Can you see that at the trailing edge? It's actually a little bit see-through, which tells you that they've got Airfix have got their moulding a lot more finessed to be that thin. I mean, of course, we're not going to know yet what it goes together like, and I'm sure one or two people will be building this within the week, probably. But the actual surface quality, it looks amazing. It really does look excellent, that. Wow. I mean, the riveting, it's so scale-like, isn't it, for 148? It's not overdone, it's very, very detailed, very fine. Here's your inserts on the underside underwing, which you will need to drill a couple of holes. They have got the. Yeah, I don't know why we have to drill holes. It's not just Airfix. I moan about this constantly because days gone by the holes would already be there. I just find it a little bit frustrating. You still have to drill a hole when they've already done half the work. Why can't they just push it all the way through? There must be a technical reason that makes it difficult. Here's your tail plane. Which again looks really nice, doesn't it? It's two-sided. So you don't have to build it up. And then you've got your all moving tail planes over here. Sorry, a point I should have pointed out, something I've missed. Something that I should have said is, of course, this is the GR.1 tailplane. I mentioned about the radar and sensor pod that's in the tail. Of course, the GR.1 doesn't actually have that. It's the GR.1A that does. Just look at the side to check, make sure I'm not talking rubbish. According to that, it has got it. Is that right? Did it always have that on the tail? Well, it claims to. I'm just going to check the instructions. We need to know this because if that could be the French version, yeah, that may be coming in the near future. Let me just go back to that. This business with the tail. It's quite an important. Sorry, let me zoom you back. Don't leave you looking at nothing. It's quite an important thing we need to just establish this, because if this is not, if that tail has no relevance to this kit, then that tells us there's going to be more versions coming pretty soon. Where is it? Yeah, well, you definitely build that up with that. Yeah, and the British version. So we're definitely going to get other versions. Now, maybe for the trainer edition, it's definitely not the all moving tail plane. That is definitely the tail. So that's very interesting. That's quite revealing. So we've definitely got further versions to come, folks. So look, there they go. Look at the tail, just next to where my thumb is here. That is not the GR1 or GR.1A. So it's either going to be the French version, maybe an Indian version, or the trainer version. I do hope they do a trainer, because the Jaguar in T2 form looks absolutely brilliant. It's a really nice aircraft. We have two pilots here. Two pilots, and I've got to say they look pretty decent, to be honest. Certainly better than what we saw in the Gannet. And I'd say probably better than what we saw in the Lysander. I like the Lysander figures, but in terms of their clothing and what have you, but they just have these very almost melted looking faces. There was no distinct detail at all. Couldn't really see that they had a mouth or anything, so that was a little bit off-putting. Anyway, let's crack on the next bag. Just bear with me a second. So I'll bag them up later just for your convenience and speed. We've got some clear parts I need to look at next. Let's have a look at these. Oh, they're in two separate sections. Okay. Let's just cut it across the end then. He says. Whoops. There we go. I think my knife is getting a little bit blunt, folks, because it's just not cutting it literally anymore. Another one? No. Just a little bit. There we go. Get brutal with it. Here we go. Clear parts. Now then, and remember, I have previously grumbled about some of Airfix's clear parts. I wasn't overly enamoured with the 24th scale Spitfire Mark 8 clear parts at all, or the Mark 9. Well, I am delighted to tell you that's not the case here. These look lovely. How about that? So we've got here our main windscreen, main canopy, and then the interesting bits. So we've got a couple of windows, we've got a gun sight it looks like, then we've got the laser designator nose here. See that? That's the nose where you'll just mask the window and then you spray it all. But there's also some interesting bits here. Now what have we got here? It's this, another version that's coming out, I think it may be, that's got a clear window in it, like it's a laser designator pod. Don't think I saw that in the loadout, so that's something else to come later. Very interesting, isn't it? Very interesting, but the quality is superb, I must say. Now let me just put that aside and let's get this other one open. Okay, it's just the lights basically, all of the lights. Frame M. Yeah, so that's not quite so glamorous, but yeah, they look nice. Nothing wrong with those at all. So it's kind of a 10 out of 10 on the old clear parts Airfix. That's looking really nice. Can't see a problem with it at all, to be honest. Oh, sounds like one of my neighbours is off. Sounds like they've got a bit of an exhaust problem to me. Right, so big bag. Let's have a look at this. Now they've got this thing now, Airfix, where they're still putting them in these absolutely. Look at the scale of this bag. Look at the size of that. That is a little bit ridiculous, is it not? That's a little bit much. Ooh, it's also kind of crimped very strangely as well. I mean, that is just, this is literally, it's about 8 to 10 inches. It's got 10 inches oversized, you know. That's silly, isn't it? We don't need that. I don't understand why. The site, it's produced in India, of course. For those of you that don't know, it's not UK production, this gear. But I don't know why they have to have such an exorbitantly, really over the top bag. It just means things are flying around a bit more than they should be. So we've got one sprue that's actually kind of attached and isn't attached. I mean, that can just twist off. I think that's the idea, really. Let's just put that over there. Right, let's get into this then. So we've got some of our engine parts here. The plastic looks epic, to be honest. So we've got, start with the engine intakes here. So it's got these, the blown doors, but they don't open, sadly. I was kind of hoping that there might be an option to open those, but they don't. Then we've got the underside of the fuselage here. And then we've got our ultimate surround for the jet pipes. And here's the actual afterburner jet pipe itself with the afterburner ring. There. Over here you've got your, well, actually the ailerons, in fact, ailerons. And we've got the strakes, the under strakes that go under the rear fuselage just ahead of the engines, and then you've got your various, this is your flaps here, just realised, oops, sorry, here, flaps. Yeah, they're nice. There's no sort of, can't see any sink marks or anything like that, all very clean, very nice. Then we've got this huge great sprue. I'm going to zoom back, this is massive. A really big sprue actually, look at this. And this has got all things like our gear. There's definitely going to be other versions of this coming out, so I'm just a little bit wary now about which parts are which. We've got there the main front gear leg, and then you've got all your various wheels, and you've got the weight on wheels, which you can see there, can't you? They look really, really nice, in fairness. Very, very well conceived. See how they flattened them off? Yeah, that's nice. And again, there are different, I was going to say they're different wheels, it's just that they're either side, aren't they? Yeah, it's okay. Scratch that. I'm getting carried away. But they've got some really nice moulding here. They're still going for this, which I quite like. They're going for this Zokimura style ejector pin lugs to try and avoid having an ejector pin actually on the actual part itself. Now I have got a problem here actually. This, can you see that? There's a stress mark here. That's actually broken here. For whatever reason, it's broken off its sprue contact point, and that white mark isn't supposed to be there. I'll tell you that for sure. It's not a deal breaker because I think it's easily fixed, but it's a little bit, yeah, it's actually broken. Can you see it there? It's actually separated. So just watch out for that on yours. It's not a load bearing part as such anyway, it just fixes to the leg on the back here. So I think that'll be okay, that won't be a problem. Over here we've got our air brakes, of course, with the little vents in them. And then you've got all your sort of detail in your gear bay. That's the nose gear bay. The cutout is for the tyre to go in. And you've got all the conduits detail, conduits and wiring. Very nice. That's great. And then over here, just again, the main gear area, the bay, with all again conduits and wiring in it. Super. That's very nice. That one, and then we've got another absolutely massive, and again it's kind of a double sprue, which I'm going to split down because I think they've done this just for transportation purposes. If you just do that with it, and it comes apart into two separate sprues, and they are separate anyway because this is E and this is F. So this one has got our It's got the ejection seat pull hoop. Here it is. Two versions of that, not quite sure why, but again that indicates to me you've got two ejection seats, so that again indicates that there's probably a trainer version coming out soon. Now we did say though, didn't we? There were two different versions, and you can see the head box is different. So scratch that, but it doesn't explain why there'd be two hoops though, which are identical. Interesting. And then we've got the tanks. We've got the big 1200 litre tanks here, and again they've got a really nice detail on them. Some just fine riveting detail. I don't know if it's picking up on the camera. That's very nice. Very, very good. Let's just sit back a fraction. And then you've got all your fins there for the tanks, aero fins, and then you've got all of your pylons, mounting pylons for the stores here. And again, some nice riveting and hatch detail on those pylons. And here you've got your these are the rails, aren't they? I think for the sidewinders on the top. Yeah, I think so. That's very nice. Next one, another big sprue though, wasn't it? Whew. And this is the smaller one, the E sprue. So here, this is that section that goes behind the behind the cockpit. It's like it's almost like an air conditioning unit, I think, actually. Exit. Then over here you've got your arrestor hook. I mean, I'm not seeing any short shots or anything like that. There's just one or two where sometimes they seem to get stressed. I think there is a danger for Airfix and other manufacturers in making these sprues too big, because I think you end up with a lot of lateral force getting in transit, getting put on them, which would explain why we had that problem we just saw with the front nose wheel gear cover. But then you've got all your little antennas, and then here you've got your various retraction actuators for the main gear. And this is your, I think that's the Arden gun cover, where it has vents to let out the heat from the gun being fired. That is your tail cap right at the back of the aircraft. Goes on the tip, which has a parachute in it, of course. Parachute's in there. Very nice. Okay, so that's that one, and we've seen that one. Right, another bag. Bear with me, I'll just zoom you back. Oh. And then, this is why I find it a little bit odd, I'm afraid. I wish Airfix would sort this out. So we've now got one bag with just one sprue in it. So we've got one with two big massive sprues in it, and then one on its own. But again, it's in a massive bag, which again has got this strange crimping on it that's at least 8 inches oversized. Yeah, I don't think they've quite got the packaging right yet. That's one area where they can work on. Come on, the bags are so massive. It's a major task just to cut them. Right, last sprue then. Here we go, final one. Oh, this has got the nose. This is going to look at the size of it though. They're such big sprues, aren't they? I mean, what I often do is when I'm working on a model is I hang them up. I've got them in front of me now for the Mosquito. I hang them up on my notice board, the ones that I'm going to need to be working on. And I also put, some of you will have seen, I put some masking tape on from Tamiya, and I write very big and clear which sprue it is, K or whatever. In this case it's H. So this is an interesting one, because this is where you're going to maybe have to do some work, and I think Mr. Ox is going to have to do some, because if he wants to have a GR1, so we'll move that knife. If Mr. Oxley wants the GR1 rather than GR.1A, GR.1A, no problem, you just put that clear part on here and that is your nose. I like the look of this though, I do like the look of it. And you can tell, if you look at that nose, it almost sort of flutes up a little bit, doesn't it, at the end? Can you see that it tips up ever so slightly, the angle? And obviously, if you end up, just turn this round. If you end up, this is where it's going to be tricky for the camera. putting on the GR1 nose, it's much more pointy. So this is the, yeah, see what I mean? It has this slightly, it sort of creates a little space for the laser designator and targeting system, and then if you have the pointy nose, obviously that's just a straight point down. So that's why you need to cut off with that jig, and this is the jig over here. Can you see? These parts they form the jig. So it's like a shroud. You put it over your nose, and then ahead of that is where you cut this nose off, which is a clever idea. I would have maybe preferred not to do that, if I'm being honest. But because it just opens up the possibility of fouling it up, you know. But there's the two halves of the nose. I also don't like the fact the nose is split down the middle, actually, if I'm honest. I would have liked like a slide moulded nose in one piece, which is more typical. So yeah, if there's any disappointment, it's not a big one. But I'd just like to see Airfix perhaps get into slide moulding a bit more, but probably that'll put the price up a bit. Now this, talking of price, this kit was around about the £50 to £55 mark. It's much better value than the Buccaneer was. Buccaneer I thought was overpriced because it came out at £74, which was just too much, frankly. And they are now selling for around about £50. This one, I think, in fairness, they've got it right. I think they got the pricing spot on with it, to be fair. So no complaints there at all. You've got your Sidewinder 9Ls. They've done those beautiful. They're almost in one piece, aren't they, apart from that tail? But they've moulded those very, very nicely. Let's just get a bit closer. That's nice. Yeah, I like those. They look spot on, they do. Yeah, I like it, like it. And then you've got your central ventral tank, which I always thought looked really ugly. So I won't be going for that, I don't think. Over here you've got your instruments. That's the back of the bulkhead behind the ejector seat, and there's the instrument panel. And then you've got all your ECM pods, ANLQ pod and all that stuff. And then here you've got your option of your retarding bombs or freefall bombs. I think the freefall of those, and I think the retarding of those. Can't be 100% sure. It's very hard to know. So on the retarding bombs, that little parachute pops out to slow them down. And there we've got some of the instrumentation switches for the cockpit. Here are those vents that you get underneath the rear fuselage. And that's kind of it, really. And you just finish off with the pointy end. No, not. Oops, there we go. With the pointy end, where you've got two options. You've got the pitot head like that, which I think is for the GR1, and then the GR.1A has that one, slightly longer one. I think I might say that's correct. I'm just going to check that actually, because it's a little bit tricky to work that out. And these are nicely bolted, aren't they? These rails for the sidewinders. That's really good. Okay. Right then. Let's just have a little round up. I'm just going to check that one thing though, about the pitot, which has the longer pitot head. Yeah, I'm right. The shorter one is the GR1 because it has quite a long nose already. So the longer pitot is on the GR.1A. So there we have it, folks. Right then, what do I think? Well, any disappointments? Anything I'm not very happy about? Well, I'm not very happy about these silly bags, to be honest. I think they're a bit daft. It's something that many people have moaned about several times. It's not a big deal, of course, but it's a bit frustrating. And we have a couple of parts there that just seem to have been slightly damaged in transit with that the gear door for the nose gear. Other than that, as I say, I don't like the split of the nose. I wish that was moulded in one piece. What's my verdict? I think I'm going to give it 9.75 out of 10. Very close to a 10. Very close to a 10. the bags thing, I'm sure they could cure that in 5 minutes if they wanted to be honest. That's nothing really. Would like to see them. I mean, they get a lot of credit for the instructions, they get a lot of credit for the jigs and things like that, where Paramjit's worked his magic and thought, need to make this easy to do. Cutting off noses is a nightmare, and he's clearly recognised that, you know. It would have been nice if they could have found another solution, I think. But, you know, he's trying to help you, and that's what's important, and it's been thought about carefully, obviously. So I'm very impressed with it. I am delighted with it, I've got to say. We so needed a new JAAAG, and I think it looks... It's strange, obviously you've got the separate section for the nose, so it doesn't look perhaps as imposing or as impressive as it will do. When you plug that nose on, it's going to be quite a decent size, of course. But the detailing, and some of the fine detailing, and the thinness of the trailing edges, it's a very nice kit. It's a lovely kit. I'm going to give it 9.75 out of 10. I think that's a fair score. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth the money. It's good value, whereas the Buccaneer I didn't think was. And I think they've hit the nail on the head with the value side of it and got the pricing right at last. And it's very, very welcome. And I've got 2 of these on order because I say I want to do a GR1, and I'm either going to maybe do an Operation Granby, but I don't know, I just don't like the scheme that much. Having said that, I've got some very nice MRP Desert Pink, Desert Sand Pink to use. So I need to use it and have a go. So I probably will do one. I might even buy a third one in the future. But it was interesting that there was that different tail. So I think that's probably for the trainer, isn't it, for the T2. Well, we'll have to keep our eyes open for that in the future, perhaps. It does look like there's going to be plans for another one. Well, there we go. Thank you very much, Airfix. I really appreciated that. I think it's something that's so many people are so pleased to see. I think they're going to sell like hotcakes. Well, on the box of mine, I think it was there about 10,000? I think 9,500. I think it's numbered, so there's at least 9,500. I think in the first tranche. So there's a fair amount of kits there, and I suspect that if it builds well, if it goes together well, I think that, and they get more positive feedback will come, because people are always a bit nervous when it's new. Somebody's going to be building this, as I say, within 10 or 14 days. Just you watch. It won't be me though. I'm a bit busy with other things. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I tried to show you as much detail as I could and give you the background as well as best I could and make it entertaining. So, yes, a very welcome kit indeed. One of the most sought after and desired updated retooled kits from Airfix for a long, long time. And it looks absolutely superb. I would definitely recommend it to you. I wouldn't hesitate to get it. So I say it's that far from being a 10 out of 10, just a couple of glitches there. Things I'd like to see changed, but it's near as damn 10 out of 10 to be fair. It's a fine piece of quality. There's no short shots, nothing like that. Looks brilliant. Excellent. Well done, Airfix. Hope you'll give me a 10 out of 10 with a thumbs up. And thank you very much for joining me. I will just say one final point on Airfix is that if any of you, I'm going to put a link over here to give us the kits we really want. Well, they did do. Thank you very much. But it gets better because I demand a Jaguar. And then the second thing I was moaning about, saying that I thought they ought to do, wasn't quite as strong a demand, but I was really keen that they do a Stalwart, and they are doing a Stalwart. This is fantastic. So that'll be the next Airfix that I review for you, which again, there'll be a lot of passion and a lot of enthusiasm for that, because that's going to be brilliant as well. And that's retailing, is it about £35, something like that? A really good value kit, and looks to me from what I've seen to be a nice one. So watch this space, folks, watch this space. I'll be back with more Airfix. It could be fairly soon. I think it'll be in just a week or two, hopefully, fingers crossed. Anyway, thanks a lot. Cheers for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show, found it useful. Please go out, if you've got any enthusiasm for Jaguars at all, please go out and buy the kit, because I think we need to show our appreciation to Airfix, having moaned and you know, begged and pleaded for so long and prayed, that we now go out and actually buy it and make it successful. And so they'll listen to us more in the future, hopefully, fingers crossed anyway. So thanks a lot for watching, and until next time, stay well, stay safe, take care of yourselves. Thanks very much, and bye for now.